Hello and welcome back to video number 2. What's a webinar without an audience? So obviously before you get started and create your angle and this and that, you need to know your audience, their objections, why they don't buy, and why they buy, so that you can reinforce it throughout every step of the way. Reinforce it in the angle, reinforce it in the meat, the content, the pitch, the value, and the close. So step 1 is going to be about attracting people who will most likely buy from you. And I really want you to think about this because a lot of times we try to reach everybody, but reaching everyone is the big mistake. You don't need to reach everybody. You just want to reach a specific type of person that wants to buy from you. Because if you do that, it's going to be a lot more focused. They're going to know and feel that you're speaking directly to them. So what I want you to do is pause this video, not now, but as I go through, just pause the video each and every step of the way and do this assignment. This is very crucial, so I really want you to focus in on it. I really want you to think about this. Who are your best prospects? If you can sit down, take a piece of paper, write down who are your best prospects. You can list a couple, but I really want you to narrow it down to 1 or 2. 1 is better simply because it's more specific. And when I say best prospects, I mean those prospects that actually become customers. Do you know them so well to the point that you know what's going on in their minds? Because if not, what you want to do is you want to have customers that fit a certain profile. So the question is, do you have customers that fit a very, very specific profile? Because if you do, then great. If you don't really know, you need to figure out. So if you can, pick your top 10 to 20 best customers and create a profile. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean in just a second. If you haven't sold your product before, it hasn't launched or anything like that, you will need to do a little bit of research by trying to find the prospects, the best prospects for your product or your service. So if you don't know, maybe look at your competitors and try to get an analysis of the best prospect for that specific niche. Step number 2 is creating a profile. So once you have an idea of those top 10 or 20 folks that are going to be your best prospects, what you need to do is sit down and think, okay, what are the commonalities that your top 10 or 20 best prospects or customers have in common? Like all of them. Not necessarily like their hair color or eye color or, stuff like that. Having a list of demographics like age, race, ethnicity, things like that can be important, but this is really a lot more deeper than that and just really thinking about how they think. What are reasons why they love your product and hate it? Probably the best way to do this is try to dig up the emails that in the communication that you've had in the past. What were their initial objectives? Pull out the past emails, see what kind of questions that they had previously. If you can find some commonalities between the questions that they asked, then you have more reason to think, okay, this must be the commonality, this must be the objection, and so forth. Because a lot of times, the objections that we think may be objections really are not objections to our audience. So we really have to get proof and facts. If you don't know these answers, try to meet up with them, email them, interview them, reward them for their time, give them an Amazon card or something. But this stuff is valuable because it's the difference between, getting a lower conversion rate and a higher conversion rate. So if you really know your audience really, really well, it's just going to make your life a lot easier. And I guarantee you creating a webinar is going to be a lot easier because you'll know exactly who you're going to be talking to. Step 3 is what are the reasons why they buy and the reasons why they do not buy. So let's say, for example, you have interviewed your customer or you have found the past emails from your customers. I really want you to jot it down. Jot down those objections, jot down those complaints. Complaints are good because it tells us, one person complains, generally, 10 or 50 other people are thinking the same thing. They're just not saying it. So be thankful for people who complain and whine and things like that. Some people just whine just to whine, but there's some people who actually give constructive criticism, which is really good. So why do this? Well, you want to figure out their objections because you want to present them throughout your angle, your content, your pitch, your value, and your close. So think about it. If you really know that their objections are, say, for example, they don't have enough money, then your angle could be, this is not necessarily for everybody, but you can afford it, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have payment plans. Don't worry if you can't afford it now. You can just pay bit by bit by bit, but you can still access, the content. Then inside of the content, you could talk about that as well. The pitch, you could talk about the payment plans, the value. You could multiply the value by 10 and provide a lot of value so that it's kind of a no-brainer for them to join even on a payment plan. And then, of course, the close, you could have a countdown, or you can even say something like, 2 weeks, I want you to be able to think about this, don't rush. So I'm giving you a full 2 weeks. So that's kind of a indirect, scarcity tactic. Or you can do a direct one and just do a very hard 72 hours countdown, however you wish. So it's always good to test it, with the shorter amount of time and the longer amount of time. Sometimes with the longer amount of time, people feel like, okay, you're not being pushy, you're not pushing me, and they'll come back later down the road. So it's always good to test. That's all I'll say right now. Examples of objections and solutions. I don't know where to start. So in the back of their mind, they're thinking, okay, this is all great information, but is your video course or is your software or whatever going to be really super easy? So obviously that kind of goes back to your product to make sure that your product can fit newbies, intermediates, and advanced. Now, knowing your audience is key. Most of the people that buy your product are more likely experts, then they don't know where to start, might be in an advanced level. So that's why you need to know your audience really well. Don't know where to start doesn't always mean that they are newbies. So you could provide coaching, one-on-one help. They don't really have an excuse to say that because you're going to provide them with one-on-one help, coaching, or maybe you have advisors underneath you that could help them. Another very popular objection is, I don't have enough money to pay right now. Well, if that's the case, you could provide payment plans, like I talked about earlier. Don't have enough time. That's another objection. Very, very popular objection. So what you can do is say, okay, you don't have enough time, so I'm going to offer you a done-for-you package to kickstart the process, whatever that might be. Setting up a website, installing a software, getting the configuration settings of the software set up, a service, whatever it might be, you have a done-for-you package to kickstart the process. You see, if you really know your customers' objections, your prospects' objections, and the reason why they did not buy in the first place, then you can really focus in on 1, 2, or 3. Now, these are general, but Some markets, some niches don't have the problem with not enough money. They just don't have enough time. So if you have a balance here, like they have a lot of money but not enough time, you can do done for you packages. If they don't have enough money but they have a lot of time, then they're probably going to want the payment plans. So that's why knowing the objections is so crucial. Welcome to video number 3. Let's talk about our blueprint for a sales webinar. Now, I want to make something clear here. When I say sales webinar, I am not talking about pitch fests, because a lot of webinars are pitch fests and they go straight into promoting a product or talking about a product. The reason why I say avoid this, unless in rare situations where people are actually coming to learn about a product or service or a software or how to use it and this and that. If you're trying to sell that product or service, you probably want to avoid it to become a pitch fest. Because the truth of the matter is that people really don't care about you, your accomplishments, or what you're selling. Unfortunately, that's the truth, and that's the world. Only and only if it can actually help them. So what I want you to do when you're thinking about, okay, I'm trying to sell something on my webinar, how can I do this? Well, I want to tell you this. Don't be afraid, because a lot of people are afraid of doing this because they're thinking, oh, if I do this and I give it all, I give all my lots of my content. You don't really want to give all your content, but you want to give your best content. So instead of talking about your product right away, you want to be a little bit different and provide your best content and the results of your product that is produced. You want to provide that first in the desires and the wants. And then you can, talk about your product later on. But until somebody actually desires your product or desires the results that your product or service can produce, in the end, they're really not interested in your product. Now, there can be a big debate about this because it really depends on what you're selling, right? If your webinar is, like I said, in the rare circumstances is about how to use a software, how to use something, or how to use a product, then that's not really what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here are sales webinars that sell a product. Show people the what's and the whys. Why you should get this product later down the road, or why do you need such and such, or what is such and such. Don't really go into the how. You can go into the how a little bit, but the how is the product or service itself. The what's and the whys are going to get people interested in the content and then want to buy your product later down the road. So really don't be afraid to give really, really good content. Look at your product and service and try to get the best content and give it to them. So basically more what's and whys than the hows. So this is what the blueprint looks like. And feel free to tweak it, customize it to your liking, add stuff to it. But if you add stuff to it, make sure that you test it out. But this is something that has been working well for us. As long as you keep in mind, number one, your audience, their desires and wants, and their objections. You basically want to stack it so that you have this here. You know your audience really, really well. Then you take that information and you basically use their desires and wants, what they want, the results, the end results that they want, and the objections. You apply that to your angle. So basically, you're basically piggybacking on top of each other. Once you have found your angle and the audience objections and desires, you want to take these two items, and apply it to this, and this. So you don't want to really just go all in and talk about you as the expert unless it helps remove those objections and get closer to those desires and end results. So if you can figure out, okay, my audience's objections are, money. So you're thinking, okay, you want to create like a story or create positioning of yourself that relates to that. Now, you don't want to lie. Definitely be ethical. This is not about lying or anything like that. You definitely want to be ethical, definitely want to be honest, but it's all about angling it towards this route. So once you find your angle, then you can use social proof and position you as the expert. Because if you think about it, okay, if you're going to talk about yourself, how does talking about yourself actually relate to resolving those objections? So you have to really ask yourself along the way. And once you position yourself as such, you want to make it so that people feel like, okay, you're at a point where I want to get to, and I'm almost there, or I'm not there yet, but I need your help. And that's where you're going to provide them with more social proof, more content down the road. So the next thing to do after you have positioned yourself, which I will get into a lot more detail in the next couple of videos, but providing your content would be the next step after this. And you specifically want to focus on end results or end desires, because that's going to help people guard go down and want to actually move towards the end of the webinar. Now, what you could do, you want to list all these out, list the content, break down the pitch, and then justify the price. But you kind of want to give teasers along the way. As you're talking about your angle, you could talk specifically about the content to get people to move along and take baby steps along the way, so that it creates the desire to really want to get to the end of that webinar. Because you got to think about it, a lot of people actually quit in the middle of the webinar. So you kind of want to get engaged with your audience if possible as well. Try to ask them questions that relate to their objections, or questions that relate to their desires and the end results that they want to achieve. If you can interact with people, ask them yes or no questions. Don't really ask them too complex of a questions. Just say something like, have you ever experienced this? Yes or no, blah, blah, blah. If you can get your audience to interact with you, then you can get them to the end of the webinar where you're going to have the pitch, which is basically essentially the call to action. Pitch doesn't always mean a direct hard sell. It can be an indirect sell, but you always want to have a call to action, and you want to always ask for the sale. Because if you don't ask for the sale, they're not going to buy, or they're not going to know what exactly step by step what to do. And then, of course, we have justifying the price. If your product, let's say, for example, is worth, you're asking $197, and your product, what you want to do is you want to multiply that by 10. So you want to give so much value that your product itself becomes like a $1,997 product, or a 1,000, whatever, 197, or $200 times 10. That's $2,000. $2,000 worth of value. And then you want to kind of move from that point, and you say it's not 2,000, it's not 1,000, it's not 1,500, it's not 500, it's only $200. So, but you want to prove to them, that's the value. But more on that video. And then, of course, we have the close. And with the close, you can have scarcity, you can use countdown timers, whatever. Countdown timers tend to work really, really well, but it's up to you. You can test it out. You can do one without a timer, one with a timer, one with a very long extension of a deadline, and one with a short timer. And just test it, see what works best for your audience. So that's pretty much the blueprint here, and feel free to copy this, but we're actually going to break it down in the future videos. So with that said, let's move on to the next video. Hey, and welcome back. This is video number 4. We're going to talk about finding your angle, which is very, very important part of being the stepping stone of your whole webinar. So the biggest mistake that a lot of people make, even I have made it over the years, is that most angles are too scattered or too general. So basically, the more specific you can get, the better. The more general it is, it's harder for the audience to understand your angle, and they might just quit in the middle of the webinar. But the more specific it is, the more congruent it is, the better. And I'll talk about a little more about that in just a minute. So what are angles? Angles are basically just the way that you present your content, your pitch, your close, everything like that. And they will all stack on top of each other. So angles are how you ultimately are going to teach your content. So you could have an angle about honing in on a specific desire, a very, very specific desire, a very, very different or specific objection. And that angle can sprout from ultimate desires, ultimate results, and lower the objections that people have. And if you can stick with that angle and be congruent all throughout the whole blueprint, that will actually help you increase your conversion rate. Let me give you some examples here. Let's say, for example, that people desire, or your people, your prospects desire to make more money with their WordPress site. It doesn't matter what the angle could be. It could be gaining muscle mass, losing weight. It could be fitness, health, relationships, whatever. But in this case, it happens to be making more money with a WordPress site. So if you've done your research in terms of your audience and you know that the problem or the objection is that they are not technical and they don't have a lot of time to spend, but the objection is not that they don't have money, but they do have money. So they do have money, but they're not technical and they don't have a lot of time to spend. So in profiling them, we know that they're busy people. Maybe they're busy full-time workers or part-time workers. They want to build a business and so forth, so they have a WordPress site. Your product could be a WordPress plugin that allows a person to achieve this end desire of potentially building their own business or even making more money on the side to feed their children and do things with their family, go on vacations, stuff like that. Now, your WordPress plugin doesn't necessarily print money, but it does something on your site, such as making things more user-friendly in terms of the shopping cart, the process of getting people to take action, signing up on your list, things like that. So you can essentially position your WordPress plugin to help them in the end make more money to achieve that goal. So that's why knowing your objections, knowing the desires of your customers, and your prospects is key, because you can angle it towards that. You could teach the lengthy process of how somebody could do it without a WordPress plugin, and don't even talk about a WordPress plugin, and focus on giving value, giving content along the way, showing the end results of what happens with and without the process. So knowing that their objection is time and technical, you're showing them the process, you're showing how easy it is, but it takes a long time. So it can take days or even weeks. But you can say, but I'm going to show you at the very end how to speed this process up. So you're not even talking about the WordPress plugin. That's not even part of their minds. Because once you raise that WordPress plugin up or whatever you're promoting, their guard goes up. So you really have to be careful as you walk them through the whole process. But if you angle it as this process takes a lot of time, days or weeks, and at the end of the webinar, you can show your WordPress plugin and say, hey, Or you can set this WordPress plugin up. It only takes 5 minutes to set up, and I can show you how to do it. You show them and you show them that it doesn't require a lot of technical know-how. So think about it. If their objections is they aren't technical and you tell them this doesn't require a lot of technical know-how and they don't have a lot of time to spend, and you can say this speeds up the process, they do have money, then that's what you can do. If they don't have a lot of money, you can do payment plans and you can adapt to solving their objections. So you see where I'm going with this? You see how powerful this is? Knowing the desires and objections up front helps a lot. And it allows you to plant them throughout your angle, your content, your pitch, your value, and your close. And congruency is the key here. You want to make sure that everything, those desires and objections are within your angle, within your content, within your pitch, within your value, and within your close, all the way to the end. You can even use them in your follow-up messages. But today we're not talking about, marketing your webinar or anything like that. We're talking about how to create a high converting webinar itself. That's a topic for a different day. But if you can do this, this will definitely help your angle to increase your conversions. So remember, don't be general, don't be scattered. People want you to take them step by step through the whole process. But by doing so, if you're congruent, you can take somebody who's interested in the angle to make sure that they are continuously interested through the end of the process. Welcome to video number 5, Who's the Host? So who is the host? That's you. You're the owner of the product or service, or you might be an affiliate or sales associate of the product or service. If you're the owner of the product and service, then great. If you're a sales associate or an affiliate, then you're going to need to talk about perhaps how the product or service has impacted you. So you need to still provide the end result or the desires and solve the objections. So as long as you are able to talk to them by solving their objections and solving their potential desires, then it doesn't matter who you are, you can still relate to your audience. Now, it's easy to talk about yourself the way you want to. Don't. And I've made that mistake before, and I know many of you have too. There's nothing wrong with that. But as long as you know that there is another way of doing this, there is another way of not bragging and letting your results brag for you and other people brag for you, and doing it in such a way will actually help your webinar and increase your potential sales at the end of the webinar. People want to know why they should listen to you. So they do want to know about your credentials and your expertise and your experiences and things like that. But you just want to stick with the formula. Follow the formula. And follow that blueprint, which is basically knowing your objections, knowing the desires, adding that onto the angle, then using that angle and positioning you as part of that angle. Because at this point, the person who has listened to the webinar has become interested in that angle. So then, therefore, they are interested in that angle throughout the whole webinar, right? So you're being congruent. So what I want you to do now is just list out your prospect's desires, which you should have already done, and the objections. And then possibly on a piece of paper on the left-hand side, the desires. On the right-hand side, list out your experiences as an expert or as somebody who has used the product or service as living proof and how you have reached those points already. Because people want to know, your past experiences with the product and service, but only include those ones that actually fit that frame. So if your past experiences have nothing to do with those objections, with those desires, don't list it at all. So the end results are this. Describe what it's like to have achieved those end results. Because think about it, somebody's listening to the webinar because they want to know how you reach those results. But you always want to start with that you were once in their shoes. I was once in your shoes, but I started using the software and then I got these results. So that's what people want to achieve as the end results. But they want to know that you started in their shoes. But of course, you want to make sure that this is true, that you're not lying, you're ethical, you're being truthful about it, and use your life experiences to explain that state of mind. In other words, their current state of mind, starting point, ending point. People want to know that you were once in their shoes, and most likely you were in that starting point, and then you can show them the end results, which is the ending point, in the beginning. So if you can follow along and be congruent about it, your conversions will do well. This next point, after being, introducing you as the host and the expert, is to move into the actual meat or the content. In the content, you definitely want to stick with the angle and be congruent along the way. So we're going to move on to the next video. Welcome to video number 6, the real meat or the content. So let's talk about just a few things first. Add your personality to the content and engage with your attendees. Wait a minute, what? This is content. I know you're thinking that, but reality, personality, and engagement is going to attract people to stay on the webinar, not content alone. So, and the reason why is because people are going to relate to you. People buy from people that they can relate to and that they like. So if you get on a webinar and you just go straight from your angle to your content, people will listen, but they'll eventually get bored. So you want to adapt your personality to the desires that they want. So for example, if you know that objection is time, so they don't have a lot of time, which means that there's a big possibility that they're going to leave your webinar, right? So you want to be simple and straightforward to the point so that you can ultimately get to your pitch and your value, and then of course the close. But if you can add your personality in there, because think about it, you have your own personality. Every single one of you is different, so you have something different to bring to the table. If you think about, radio hosts, podcasters, they all have their own personality. Whether it's funny, whether it's serious, whether it's simple and straightforward, whether it's using fun and entertainment to create edutainment, whatever it might be, you have your own personality, and ultimately that's what somebody is going to look at when they look at your other products. A lot of people end up buying because they like you. Partially because of your content and partially because of your product and service, but ultimately they like you because they trust you. So you want to add your personality in there because you're going to attract people, especially if you're genuine about it. The way you talk, the way you interact, stuff like that. The next thing is engagement. And I want to give you some examples here. Have you ever been on a webinar and the man or woman just talks in a monotone voice? It's like, so today I'm going to show you a process, blah, 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 blah. I mean, think about that. We've all been there and done that. Even we've all talked in probably monotone voices. I did too. But think about it. You fall asleep and or worse, you leave. So that's going to be the same case with your attendees. But on the flip side, have you ever been on a call when there's time to be serious and time to laugh, ha ha ha, stuff like that? And it's just fun to be on that webinar. You're really enjoying it, that you really don't want to leave, and your focus is on it. So while you're laughing or being serious and this and that, you're more likely to pay a close attention all the way to the end. So that's really the goal here, is getting people to move along and wait until the end. And to be more engaging, the host, you, needs to ask yes or no questions. And if you think about it as you as an attendee, when the host asks yes or no questions while you just sit there, even if you're not answering yes or no, the fact that he's reading down the list saying, okay, yes, yes, thank you very much, yes, thanks. Just that in itself is social proof. For other people to engage with your webinar, you find that interesting that other people are engaging. So you have the herd mentality comes through and you're thinking, okay, well, if other people are engaging, this must be interesting. So that's why engagement is so important. You don't have to really ask complicated questions, and you don't really want to, simply because you want to get answers. You want to get yes or no's. You want to get no's. You want to get yeses. You want to get maybes. And if you can do that, that will increase engagement across the board, and that will allow you to talk about your actual content. You see, other webinars tend to sell. You know, they start with a product or service, which is fine if the traffic is really warm and they really know you, that's fine. But if they don't really know you and you're just selling, you're just going to be like everybody else. Now is the perfect time to differentiate yourself than selling. Because now is a time where people are very skeptical if you're selling. If you're like unlike anybody else, or the less than 5% who actually wants to give tons of value and tons of content, you're going to stick out in a good way. So be different. Focus on giving your best content away. Don't really worry about losing sales because of it, because think about it. If somebody implements what you teach just a little bit and they get results, guess who they're going to come back to? You. People are going to love you for it, and that's what matters. Because if you can stand out, whether or not they buy today, they'll buy from you later down the road. What helps is this: give formulas, break things down into step-by-step processes. Like, say something like, I'm going to give you a 3-step process or a 5-step process. You don't want it to be too big. You can say, I've got a 20-step process, but I'm just going to talk about these 3 steps, because if you implement this right away today, you're going to get some sort of results. You can show them blueprints. Don't be afraid to show them your blueprint. Show them shortcuts, hacks, case studies of you using the product, or just the end results of the case studies first, and then you can move backwards from that point. So another way of creating the webinar content is starting backwards, starting initially and then moving backwards, and then teaching it in a backwards manner, because you start with the end result and you move backwards, right? So things to help people achieve the end goal is also good content. So these are just a few, and these are just what we found really works and what people really love, like case studies and stuff like that. Because think about it, people pay money just to get access to case studies. So if you're giving away case studies or things that cost normally a lot of money, but you're giving it away for free, then the law of reciprocation often falls in, and they want to stay till the end to really figure out what you are selling, right? And at the end, you can tell people that they can get results if they implement just part of your system. And if they do, guess what? They may not come and buy today. They'll come back later in a future webinar and buy from you in the future. And that's fine. just think of it as this. You're trying to give as much value. You're really trying to help people as much as possible. That will come back stronger than ever. And your conversion rate will be out of this world. So that's it. Just focus in. Remember, figure out your personality, engage, list out questions that you could ask, and just constantly engage like you're talking to a friend. But be serious about it and don't, get cocky or anything like that. But if that's your personality and you attract that type of person, that's fine. But make sure you stick with that personality, engagement, and content. And that's it. And now we can move on to the next piece of the puzzle. Welcome to video number 7, the pitch. I'm going to give you 2 different pitches or call to actions, and I wanted you to tell me which ones do you think you'll go for. Buy my product now. There's 72 hours, so you better do it now or else you'll never see it again. Or this product is going to help you overcome your objections, speed things up, make more money, lose money, or help you avoid losing money, and whatever objection that you're facing. And it just takes, 5 minutes to implement. If you think about the 2, obviously this is the dead giveaway that this is the way to go. But if you really think about how we get people to take action, a lot of times it sounds like the first one. It doesn't really sound like that in our minds, but it comes across that way to the attendee and the prospect. But as you can see here, if you really focus in on overcoming the objections, you really don't have to do a direct sell. It's sort of like an indirect sell, but it makes them really, really want what you're going to provide them, right? But you have to ask for the sale. But you have to do it in such a manner that it makes them want more, not being annoyed. So you have to ask for the sale. You have to have a call to action. Because if you don't ask for the sale and you just say, this is a product, here you go, it's this price, then most likely people are not going to feel that sense of urgency, right? So by this point, people will want to know what you are selling, or they will think in their minds, I want whatever you have so that I can achieve these end results now. So what do you have that will help me overcome my objections? That's what's going on in their minds, right? But if you follow the formula along the way, follow the blueprint step by step, using those objections and desires and wants, and really stacking it on top of each other, people should be interested in what you're selling or even ask that very question in their heads. And that's just going to make conversions a lot more better in your webinar, just by sticking with that congruent formula. So the pitch, all you have to do right now is to show them exactly what it is you're selling and how it truly overcomes their objections. You do that, you'll get more sales. Then focus on emphasizing their desires and how your product or service can help them get to that place. Now, we're not going to move into the price just yet. That's actually going to be the next video. So as simple as this sounds, it's actually very simple, but you have to do it in such a manner as you can see. So I hope that was a little bit eye-opening and will allow you to create the pitch that is necessary for you. Welcome to video number 8. You're almost done. We're going to talk about, is the price right? Let's talk about price. The general rule that works really, really well is multiply your actual cost by 10. The goal here is to increase the value of your offer tenfold so that it becomes a no-brainer for somebody who has the objection of, oh, this is too expensive. And then you can offer a payment plan, but the value of the package has gone up 10 times. This is basically what it looks like. If your product or service, let's say for example, is $100, then what you want to do is you want to make sure that the value of the package itself is $1,000. Now, you can do whatever you want to do. You can multiply it by 10 and make it greater. But the whole idea is if it's a big, expensive, high-ticket item, this works really well, especially if it's beyond $100. Below $100 may not be that hard of a sell, depending on your market. But if the objection is money, you might want to take this approach. So feel free to test it out, figure out what works. Now, you don't just want to say it. You don't want to just say, this package is worth $1,000 and I'm giving it to you $100. You really have to break things down and add bonuses that actually relate to the main offer itself. So you can add bonuses that emphasize overcoming those objections to help achieve those desires. So two things: overcoming those objections and achieving those desires. So adding bonuses that actually do that in addition to what you already have actually will increase your conversions, simply because you're stacking on top of each other. You're creating more focus on overcoming those objections and more focus on helping people achieve those desires. You see what I'm going with here? So the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to make sure that you over exaggerate the value of what it is really worth. So if something should be worth, $100 or $200, realistically, don't make it $1,000 just to, expand the price just to do it. You want to make it seem actually realistic. So in your business, if you charge $200 or a little bit more, you need to justify that and say, I typically charge this much, but if you buy now, I'll include it in the package that you get. So let me give you an example, just sticking with that example that we've been talking about in the previous videos. So the WordPress plugin is $100, right? We'll say that, okay, the objection is time. So if the objection is time, then done for you packages are probably going to sell like crazy. But instead of charging them, extra $150, you can say today, if you just buy it today, we'll install the WordPress plugin for you. My, WordPress programmer dude will install it for you. He'll configure the plugin to the best of your website, so you don't have to. And then you can say something like 6 weeks of X amount of minute videos, insider hacks that I've used to gain, X amount of money, blah, 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 whatever desire that they want to achieve. So as you can see, I'm stacking on bonuses that actually aim towards overcoming those objections. So done for you installation, overcoming time, and the I don't really know where to get started objection. If time is a problem, and that's a problem, instead of doing like a full 1 hour webinar, you can say 6 weeks of bite-sized 5 to 15 minute videos, or Skype groups or Facebook group or something that will overcome those objections, and then add that value there equals $1,000. And then what you want to do is go down from that point. You can say it's not that $1,000, it's not $900, it's not $800, $700, $600, $500. While it is worth $500 and totally worth it, we're not going to charge you that. It's not even going to be $400. It's not even going to be $300 and not $200. It's going to be $100. And you can say, normally you buy this WordPress plugin, it's $100. But if you get it today, just for those of you who decided to attend the webinar and those of you who are watching the webinar, you can get it today for $100. So that's really how to really increase those conversions really, really well. So does that sound simple? I hope that does. And it really is. But by adding more value that really relates to the main offer itself, because you really don't want to offer bonuses that don't relate to the main offer itself. But if you do that, you really can increase your conversions using this one trick. And another thing you can do is offer discounts. So if you don't want to do a package deal, say for example, normally your product is or service is $499 a year. Just throwing out numbers here. But today you can get it off for about $200 less or $299 a year. So you can even use discounts without having to stack on bonuses to achieve that. As long as your bonuses or your discounts overcome those objections, you'll get good conversions. Now, obviously there's no guarantee, but you're going to have to test it out with your audience to make sure. Just want to say congratulations, you are almost done. This is the last video, video number 9, and this is talking about the close. It's time to close your webinar. Time to recap what you've talked about and create some sort of scarcity and urgency. So first things first, what you want to do is do a quick recap just to refresh everyone's minds about what you discussed. And then, of course, before you close, you want to make sure that you ask for the sale. Remember, don't ask, don't get. But you don't have to ask in such a demanding manner. Then what you want to do is recap an outline of what you just talked about, just to reinforce why your product or service will help them achieve their desires. And then what you want to do is emphasize the objections. And you can say this out loud. All along, you may not have been saying it out loud, but now it's time to say it out loud. Now it's time you can say something like, well, many of my past customers said that their top 2 objections were A and B. Time and they don't know where to start. But it's okay because I will help you overcome these problems. If it is time, then this WordPress plugin is going to help you speed things up, blah, blah, blah. And if you don't know where to start, as you saw earlier with the package, I will help you get started. So essentially, you're announcing the objections. You're telling people I've got these 2 solutions. And now you can say, now my customers are happy. So if they're thinking, okay, that's social proof. And if you have a testimonial that backs that, that's even better, because then you have customers in social proof, and then the prospects are thinking, wow, okay, these are my exact objections. These are my exact objections, and customers are happy because this guy actually cares enough to help me overcome them or help them overcome it. So that's why this will help greatly. The close. By now, you have told people what your offer is about, and only after they purchase your product and service will they actually achieve their desires. Now, of course, that's your job to offer some sort of product or service that will actually achieve that. And of course, it's their job to actually take the action and achieve that. So if you've done your job, you can say, well done, I've done everything I can. And you've proved to them that they are getting 10 times the value, as I stated in the previous video. And now you can move on to scarcity. Now, let me show you what has worked for us that we have tested. So by now, it's time to add some urgency or a reason to act now, including reasons to overcome objections. What we found that really works across the board is countdown timers. They work really, really well. Generally, about 72 hours or shorter amount of time works really good. I found that if it's longer than 72 hours or even a week, people tend to forget about it unless you remind them in your follow-up series, but that's another topic for a different day. Now, you could take the opposite approach, and you can give them 2 weeks time and you can split test it and see how it's actually going to work We found that 48 hours to 72 hours works really well right after the webinar to yield the best results. Now, you can test 2 weeks and say something like, no pressure, blah, 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 blah. You know your audience better. So if you feel like scarcity would actually not do too well, you can try split testing that. But generally speaking, scarcity works because people have busy schedules, and the fact that you have them on the webinar right then and there, getting them reminded about your product and service 5 days later is going to be hard. So you got to realize people's attention spans are very, very short. So if you go lose them, you'll lose them. Now, you could debate about it and say, well, 2 weeks works better for my audience. That's fine. That's why I say test it out and figure it out what is best for your audience. Now, I know I'm not going to talk about this in this video course, but I do want to talk about a little bit about it on how you can increase your conversions with countdown timers and using scarcity. So here's what you can do in addition to building the webinar to creating a high converting webinar. What you can do is you can create a landing page with a countdown timer up at the top. So at the very end of your webinar, you say something like, go to www.blablabla.com/special. You send them to a landing page with the countdown timer up at the top. And then what you do is you can place the buy button at the bottom so that they are reminded that there is a countdown. You see? But after your webinar, what you can do is, if you're using GoToWebinar, they're basically going to give you a webinar replay so that you can simply upload it to a video hosting site, such as YouTube, Vimeo, Wistia, whatever. Simply place it on the landing page, and what you can do after that is underneath it, place a link to purchase your product or service or whatever else you're trying to promote. If you're trying to get them to take action and fill out a form, you can do that as well. Then what you can do is you can send more traffic to this page for people who did and who did not attend the webinar. And then of course, after 48 to 72 hours, whatever you promised in the webinar, you need to take it down. Or on the flip side, if it's a discount and it's 72 hours for a $200 discount per year, what you can do is you can edit the video, you can add it to YouTube, increase it to the regular price, but use it as ongoing snowball traffic. And when I say snowball traffic, I mean there's a lot of people going to your webinar, they're really, really interested. You want to utilize that snowball effect. So that, as you know, as the snowball rolls down the hill, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's what I mean by that. So that's another trick that you could take. But if you totally took it down, then of course, people will take you very seriously in the future. But if you do put it on YouTube, just make sure that you change the conditions. And when you promise to take it down in 72 hours, or you promise to increase the price, do that. But within the confines of that, you can still place it on YouTube and increase the price to the regular price and just piggyback on the snowball traffic. So I hope you learned a lot in this video course. I know there's a lot of content that I went through it, but if there's one thing that you can go ahead and do, look at the blueprint, start customizing your own blueprint, and find your angle, find those objections, find those desires that people want to achieve, and write them down. If you can write them down, that'll help you in the long run when you do the next webinar and the next webinar.